I wonder if South Africans know that as black people, we were not recognized as citizens in the country of our birth. We don't feel we belong. We are not treated as though we belong. We are born here, we are people of this country, but we don't belong. So the first was to say, all who live in South Africa, it belongs to them. That's the origin. And we need to explain the history. We shouldn't assume all of us understand. The majority of us did not belong to South Africa. And the aspiration was all of us would belong. But the aspiration didn't say we would belong whether legal or illegal. It was addressing the impact and history of apartheid.
Good morning, everyone. All protocols observed. My name is Mandy Jovel. I'm representing an organization that works with LGBTQI plus community in South Africa.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the organization.
The organization is called the Fruit Basket.
Food basket.
The fruits.
Fruit.
The Fruit Basket,
Okay.
Yeah. Dr. Naledi, you touched quite an interesting point in terms of how a documented foreign national, how productive it can be when one is documented and in developing, in contributing to the development of the economic of South Africa. I just wanted to find out, is South Africa looking forward to policy reform? A policy reform, I mean a policy that then allows foreign nationals to be documented very flexible, because we know that once someone is documented, we already know that this person might go into things like paying tax and stuff, and then it contributes highly into the economy of South Africa. Because this is what's happening in European countries like Canada and USA. You see that migrants and refugees are also being resettled in those countries, but they're not just going to be there sitting and waiting for documentation. They are documented from the time they leave. For example, when someone is being resettled from South Africa, by the time you reach the airport, you already have some sort of documents that when you reach their country, you're already an asset to them. And I'm not sure if there's something that I read, if there's a document that I read, where South Africa is saying, okay, we're going to invest in policy reforms, or we're going to invest more resources so that each and everyone who is in the country is documented. Because sometimes we look at immigration as a crisis, but again, the government entities that are responsible for immigration plays a very big role in terms of, how people enter in the country, and then how are they treated, So I wanted to have an understanding if these policies have been discussed in the background as a possibility to, to some sort of resolve the issue of immigration, moving people from just being an immigrant, but also to being a contributor to the economy of South Africa. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Well, firstly, I don't speak on behalf of government. All right? So the things you want to ask government, you need to approach Parliament and make submissions. When there's a white paper, there's usually an opportunity for submissions to be made by organizations and members of the public. And you need to do that. Well, the suggestions that I referred to spoke to the use of the skills of migrants and having a clearly articulated framework on how skills would be imported, how skills would be assessed. It's actually terrible to hear that we have mathematics graduates who are car guards in South Africa because they cannot be registered. This can't be, and we need to seek out such skills and see whether they can be developed to contribute to the socio-economic aspirations of South Africa. But it's not the case in every migrant who comes to our country. And I think sometimes we mistake illegal for everything. And that's the error. And that's why I was saying you need to have a clear distinctiveness in articulating the policy. And it must, in its content, recognize that there are various elements to it. And you can't just deal with a whole that is not a reality. So one of the attempts has been to frame the scarce skills policy. Hasn't worked brilliantly, but it has made an attempt. And we do have a lot of people who are working in key positions and key sectors in South Africa who are not South African. But I think that there can be improvements.
I'm forced to ask this question because these are issues we face on the ground as the Commission in terms of the current contestation in relation to migration. The preamble provides that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. Most of our socio-economic rights provisions say that everyone has the right to this and that. And the question which we come across is, now, it cannot be, and this is an argument or a narrative which has been posed out there, it cannot be that those who are in the country illegally or without documentation have or should have access to these socio-economic rights, because the drafters of the Constitution would not have anticipated that this would cover even those who are in the country illegally or without documentation. So I just want to hear your reflections on this narrative out there, which is even also, painted by or out by the media out there. Thank you.
I'm always astounded in the interpretation of that section of the preamble. And I don't know, I wonder if South Africans know that as black people, we were not recognized as citizens in the country of our birth. And that first phrase, which was in the 1955 Freedom Charter, when we did not have any rights, refers to every African person in South Africa who is currently without citizen status, belongs to the future, free South Africa we aspired to when the Charter was adopted at the Congress of the People in 1955. So the reality is the majority of us did not belong to South Africa, and the aspiration was all of us would belong. But the aspiration didn't say we would belong whether legal or illegal. It was addressing the impact and history of apartheid, the reality of what was confronted as the Freedom Charter was articulated. Those organizers who went from town to town, village to village, house to house, collecting the aspirations of the people of South Africa. One of the things that kept coming up, we don't feel we belong. We are not treated as though we belong. We are born here, we are people of this country, but we don't belong. So the first was to say, all who live in South Africa, it belongs to them. That's the origin. And we need to explain the history. We shouldn't assume all of us understand the nature and character of apartheid. I think we sometimes assume. And we don't recognize that you couldn't walk into a restaurant, you couldn't sit on a park bench, you had to have a temporary permit to be in Johannesburg, all those things. So you had to have a set of values and principles which articulate an opposition to the lived experience of those who were oppressed under apartheid, right? Now, when the Bill of Rights says all, As I said earlier, there is a clause in the Bill of Rights, I can't remember if it's number 2 or 3, which indicates that all these rights would have to be framed in laws that would be developed by Parliament or laws developed at the instance of the court recommending the development of a particular law which may be inadequate or absent in our statutory system. So the all is not an absolute all that you do, it's an all prescribed by legislation, right? So under the remit of a statute, you enjoy certain rights. And this is something that we need to talk about more and more. But you see, when you are populist, when you are political, when you use rhetoric, you can frame concepts in a very careless fashion. And if we don't read our constitution and our laws carefully, we accept interpretations that are actually a misdirection. And this is what's happening in our country today. And all that is being done is to boil our emotions so that we are angry and we react in an irrational manner. We must not allow that. We will have an awful country where we'll be killing people and burning people in the street because of their color, because of their sexual orientation, or because of their social status. We don't want that. As long as you act in terms of a properly framed statutory instrument, then you must have those rights. I referred to the inadequacy of implementation and the need to address this. I think this is one of our big failures in our country, poor implementation of public policy. And we need to address that capacity. I have said in previous meetings that I think we don't use our intellectual resources sufficiently. By that I mean we have a large number of research universities. We don't draw on them to examine the problem and help us to define the most appropriate approaches. Some of us are corrupt. We think public revenue belongs in our pocket, not in providing services. All of that must change. But in the end, it is the public institution that has responsibility for implementing our statutory frameworks in South Africa.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pandor.